The only thing I will say is the fact that he delayed the student loan payments again and specifically said he didn't want to start them again until he decided what he was going to do about forgiving student loans. I think he
Yeah, there may be a little September surprise coming.
I think so. I think I would give it a 60% chance at this point that Biden is going to forgive some student loan debt as a way of trying to juice the midterms.
It's going to have to be more than 10 grand, though. I mean, to wait
to
put people through a year of this and be like, "Hey, we're taking off 10 grand for people who went to public schools from 2003 to 2011." You know, I mean that's not going to work. He's going to have to sweeten the deal quite a bit from there. And the other thing about it is, I wasn't going to talk about this tonight.
Effective.
What's that?
For it to be politically effective.
Right, for it to be politically effective.
Doesn't mean that's what he's going to do, though.
No, right.
These are the Democrats.
Well, the thing is,
he could come out and make it, $1,999.99.
Well, look, the right is already poisoning this issue. I mean, you already see Fox News just hammering on the idea that people who want student debt forgiveness are a bunch of spoiled brats, right? And you had, Megyn Kelly is not on Fox News anymore, but she did a segment on this. Then you had, Judge Pirro on Fox, Greg Gutfeld. They all go off. And one of the things that's really poisoning this issue, because look, if you sit down with someone for 5 minutes, you could convince them that student loan debt forgiveness is good for them, whether they have student loan debt or not. It'd be the biggest economic boon you could possibly think of. All right. I mean, you like the old, like the cartoonish right wing thing as well. Well, we shouldn't tax millionaires because what about the people who clean swimming pools for a living? If millionaires can't afford the in-ground pool, they choose not to build the in-ground pool. Then the guy who cleans pools doesn't work, right?
Your classic trickle down.
Classic trickle down thing. Same thing applies here. You could throw that right back at them. Well, how many millennials or, late Gen Xers, would like to buy a pool, but can't because the $400 or $500 a month it might take to pay off that pool is going to student loans? What about the guy who cleans pools? What about the guy who sells cars? What about real estate agents? I mean, it would take 5 minutes, but the reason that the conversation never gets there is because the culture war, the real culture war in this country, I mean, we could pick specific issues if we want. Taking a macro view of it, the real culture war is between people who went to college and absorbed the narrative that they learn in college, which is meritocracy with a little bit of like white guilt graded in there, right? Versus people who either didn't go to college or who went to college and sort of rejected that narrative. And so people who don't have a college degree hate people who do have a college degree. And part of the reason they hate them is because people who have a college degree right now are earning a lot more money than them. And so when the idea of student debt forgiveness comes up, all the working class, sort of like Trump-aligned people say, well, fuck you. You're making a lot more money than I am. What do you mean? So now they're going to forgive your debt and allow you to accrue even more capital, even gain even more advantage over me, and it shouldn't be that way. It wouldn't be that way if we could just talk this through honestly for 5 minutes. But of course, you're not going to get that fair hearing on Fox News. And the Democrats are just blowing this to the point where this is just going to become one other issue that the right can just successfully poison. And all of a sudden, student debt forgiveness is no longer a popular item. And that could be what happens. And so, if anything, I mean, a September surprise could maybe even backfire. It might, unless he goes really big. I don't know.
I mean, unless he goes really big. Those aren't his voters anyway.
No, but
it's a question. We've been talking about this for years. Democrats cannot do politics the way the Republicans do because what would juice up their voters would piss off their donors.
Right.
They really can't do it. But what would juice their voters, the way Republicans juice their own base and say, fuck winning over anybody else. We just need our base to be rabid about showing up to vote for us to do more of the kind of shit that our crazy rabbit base wants us to do. The Democrats can't do that because then the checks stop coming, or they feel they can't do that. They won't shift to a donor, small dollar donor model. They want that big Raytheon money. Um, so yeah, you're right. They'd have to go big and say, fuck those Fox people. They're not voting for us anyway. But if we forgive 50,000 in student debt, we're going to juice turnout amongst the people who actually will vote for us.
Well, that's what I'm saying. If they go
But
small,
they
if they
won't do that.
if they only forgive 10 grand, then they're not going to see the positive returns from a really energized and grateful base. You're just going to provoke even more resentment from that white working class who thinks, why should
Without
these
really
fucking
juicing the turnout
right
on your own
without
side.
juicing the turnout
Yeah.
on your side, you're just going to, stick it in the ass of, the
What you have just described is the Democratic Party over the last 40 years.
right, exactly.
So,
Well,
if I had to place a bet on that, are they going to go big or are they going to go that way? They're going to go that way.
yeah,
I would
and
be
that's not going to
very
be enough. If anything, that
surprised
might
if
even hurt them.
he doesn't just stick to, well, that's what I promised and I'm fulfilling my promise. I'd be very surprised if he goes above and beyond what he said on the campaign trail.